Hi everyone, Gosha here. Today I want to talk about burnout and what it really is, what it's really pointing to, especially in the lives of sensitive people. And you might change a lot of how you think about burnout after watching this video, after listening to me talk about this subject, because I talk from the point of view of mind, body, and spirit, mind, body, and energy. I don't take any of the established ideas or something you might read on the internet or any references to the established labels of sensitivity and neurodivergence, such as highly sensitive person or autistic or neurodivergent or ADHD or something like that. I don't use any of this framework as this exists created and developed by whoever been developing these things. I'm using my own observations, and you'll see how that's revealing. It is revealing because when you take into account the mind, body, and spirit sort of hierarchy and its relationship to each other, you have to understand how that works a little bit. And for the channel that have existed probably 5 years, I've been talking about mind, body, and energy. I don't think I've ever called out that hierarchy too much. So basically, for understanding burnout, it will be very helpful for you to just very quickly get that out of the way. So we have our minds, our thinking and reasoning minds. You can call it neocortex, you can call it whatever you want. The reason, right? The logic. And then you have body, the body. And many people think of the body as a sort of bag of flesh and bones, right? And especially medicine wants us to convince that that's how it is. And basically the entire Western world believes in that sort of separation. Body is just basically this like flesh, right? This material sort of bag of bones, and this is what you carry with you and fix when something is broken. Now, there's also spirit that's connected to everything that is. But going back to the body, it's important to say that the body is not devoid of intelligence. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It is highly conscious and it is highly intelligent. And the simple understanding of this is you don't have to think for your breathing to happen. You don't have to think for your heartbeat to occur. You don't have to think about your metabolism, about healing the wound on your hand or whatever, right? These things happen of their own intelligence because your body knows exactly what it's doing. And the baseline is that we are regulated, peaceful, healthy, abundant, and fulfilled, right? Did I say peaceful? Probably yes. So this is the baseline of the sort of homeostasis, and it aligns also with our authentic self. I talked in some of my older videos when I talk about emotions, how emotions point to us being out of balance, out of tune with our main authentic resonance because of the things we do through our life. And here is where I want to get right down to talk about the burnout, right? Because this is what we talk about here now. Burnout, many people think that it's sort of like you're tired, you're just so exhausted because you've worked so hard, maybe in a relationship or in a workplace, and you've worked so hard and you have a burnout. Now, maybe you've already noticed that it has nothing to do with the amount of time or how much you commit of yourself to something. It has more to do and the only thing to do with misalignment of your core authentic self with whatever you've been doing. So now a lot of people are going through burnout and have been. Maybe you've been going this year, the past years, maybe you've been in cycles of burnout. I had cycles of burnout before I started listening to what it was really telling me. And the trouble with burnout is not that you will go off and rest or go and change your environment and get back to whatever you were doing prior to the burnout. This is not how it works. The chances are that if you go back anywhere near that sort of situation that caused you burnout, you're just like allergic immediately. Then there will be 5 minutes spent with that person or that situation or a workplace that caused you burnout, because we can have burnout from all sorts of things, which, we mostly think about burnout as a workplace thing, but you can have a burnout from a relationship, from being in a certain environment, from doing masks, from doing roles in a certain ways, right? And then after burnout, we get almost allergic to that thing, that person, that environment, that workplace, that whatever idea that we've been engaging with, or the way we've been doing it. That's another thing. It's not just the what, but also the how we've been doing it. So it could be that you've been doing it in the way that is maybe too fast. You're maybe giving too much of yourself to that workplace. Maybe it's actually something you like to do, but maybe you are just trying to please everyone there, or overcommit, with energy and the tasks that you are taking without saying no. And there could be a number of reasons for a burnout to happen. Now that I made this point clear, that burnout is not about the amount of the stuff we do, but about the misalignment of what we do or how we do things, mostly what we do. I want to say that it is important to notice, and this can happen in a hindsight and maybe with the use of a video such as this one, that burnout is not something that happens out of nowhere. It may seem like it's sudden, but it never is sudden. It never happens suddenly. There's always ways the body is communicating to us that it's had enough, that is misaligned with that person, with that workplace, with that environment, with that city, with that house, whatever, caused you to have that major reaction. And it could be a burnout as in being burned out in the identity that you've been carrying, such as many neurodivergent people that wake up to finally recognize that they were autistic. They recognize some neurodivergent traits. And then the world, as they know, comes crashing down because everything they've been doing, they've been trying to act as normal. They've been trying to be linear like everyone, but their nature isn't. Sensitive nature is by default non-linear. Is by default non-linear. It is multi-layered, unfolding and emerging. It's not a step-by-step, as in the executive functions want us to be, and executive tasks want us to perform. And basically the entire society that's based on the linear mind that has been the sort of established way of doing everything, setting up all the structures, setting up everything that is part of our daily life. It's set up based on the linearity of the world of reason, the world of thinking, separate from the body. Now, I have to really keep getting back to this sort of hierarchy in our construct, because the mind is linear. The thinking, the reasoning mind is linear. And we as humanity have gone way all the way to the extreme of how we should be using our mind bodies, and been growing in technology, in separation one from another, separating the mind and the body, separating people as per labels that we give them, and all kinds of ways, like separating the countries, separating, everything is based on division. This is a linear way that is also verbal. It is important to talk about verbal because we think that we feel because of the intensity of our head, and many people are believing that what they feel is in their head because the voices in the head are so loud whenever we feel a lot of intensity in our bodies. And for sensitive people, that may be very prominent. Now, this is a factor because you might not even have been realizing what you've been feeling all along the time your body was trying to discern, leading up to the burnout, leading up to the breakdown, leading up to maybe a certain illness that is a result of overstaying in a misaligned situation. So the body is discerning in the way that it knows what's good for you. Your reason does not. It thinks it does because of the coping ways it's been developing from childhood, but it has nothing to do with that baseline of harmony that I was talking about, that homeostasis that drives all the actions, operations, functions in our body to get as close to homeostasis. And it's not just biological, it's also energetic, and especially for sensitive people, it is energetic. That's why when I talk about burnout as a misalignment, what is a misalignment to? Right? If it's not about the amount of time that we've put, and no amount of rest will help you recover so much that you can get back and keep on doing the same old thing, what is the misalignment from, right? It's frequency. And your body can recognize frequency by a sort of sensations, the flows, the tinglings, all the kind of stuff that you don't want to feel. And then you go up into your head and you justify, but I will work just a little bit longer in that company, and then they will promote me, and then I can go off to, find another job. Or maybe if I just work harder on that person, they will change and they will love me. Or if I will just, make my house really nice inside, I will not be bothered that I live in the city, when in fact I feel horrible every single time I leave the apartment or the flat or leave it out the door. So it's about the frequency of what's good for you. And the example could be that sensitive people have this thing that we generalize sensitivity as this sort of flaw, that we're sensitive to everything. But just think of it that maybe you're sensitive to noise, right? You hate the cars outside. Maybe you've heard some in my video, I hope not. But you hear the noise, or you go into the shopping mall and the music is horrible. Maybe it's not even that loud, but it's too loud for you because it's jarring. It's not the music you like. And it could be a second of that sort of music that you hate to trigger you, to trigger some sort of unpleasant response in your body. But you can come home and play your favorite tune for like an hour in a row and dance to it as it's playing on full volume, and you're not bothered by this. So this is not binary, as in, yeah, I'm only sensitive, I'm sensitive to everything, or I'm not. We are sensitive to frequencies. And you might take the burnout as a sort of lesson, as a shortcut, unpleasant, yes, and sometimes really hard to go through, especially if you want to keep pushing yourself and justify using your reason, trying to talk your body into doing the same old thing, which will never work, right? Burnout and all the sort of bodily reactions we have to various stimuli, they're indicators that make us more sensitive going forward to all these triggers, to all these misalignments in frequency, to all the things that don't serve us, because clearly something in our intelligent body tells us that is not right. You can't talk your body into going through that same old thing that burned you out over again without having the consequences. Your body is going to be like, no, right? It's not that you will come up with all sorts of ways. If you have some sort of energy left, you might drag yourself through it, but the every next burnout will be more painful and will come much faster because of this. Burnout really teaches us to live authentically and to do soul searching. Frequently we get burnout, and that's why it's easily confused with fatigue. Many people get chronic fatigue from burnout and think that's the confusion kind of tied to it. It's about rest, having to rest. And rest is probably a very good idea, but rest, you have to think about rest as an intelligence of your body. What does it communicate? It needs space, A, to process what has happened, 2, process the soul searching that you have to come up with new ways of living or doing this thing, or maybe where do you live? Who do you live with? Do you work in this workplace, or do you start your own thing or go to another company? And this is basically a feeling through our energy type of navigating life that is asking us to do. It's not about figuring out. It's not about thinking or justifying or, scheming and plotting. It is really about getting closer to our bodies and feeling into us this next thing is, first of all, is this a time for the next thing? And your body will give you the sign, right? You will feel some response, and then is that next thing what I feel is right for me? You can't reason with your body, you can't persuade your body, it just knows what it knows. And there is no pleading, there is no justifying, there's no using words. Because really, in understanding of energy, words have no meaning. They also carry a charge, energetic charge. But really, it's about what feels right, what feels true to you. All right? And that's why we have to learn how to use our energy, how to use our sensitivity, our intelligence, that no one has taught us to use, right? That's why it's tempting to justify. That's why it's tempting to talk yourself into doing the same old thing, because this is how our society operates. We're told, yeah, you're tired, so you just have to rest and then you'll be back to normal, because it operates by solely the materialistic sort of level. It doesn't take into account the frequency, the resonance that has been emerging. The more sensitive people are born, and there will be more and more sensitive people being born as we refine our ways of feeling sensing energy, the more we will get into those problems and therefore solutions. And the sooner we start listening to our bodies, which is giving us the sort of communication from the realm of energy, from the realm of what feels aligned, what is on the frequency that is nourishing, that is right, that is true for me, for my system to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be at peace, to be regulated, to be healthy. It knows. That's why it's become more and more impossible for people collectively to pretend to go into these old ways and keep doing what they've been doing, even though it's way overdue past what's working for us. But we're taught to justify, we're taught to use our heads the way people taught us. So you tell yourself, yeah, I will get back to this work because I've invested so much in this career. I've invested so much money, so much time, so many years, so much emotions. Now I have to go back to this. So there is always reasoning. And with the burnout, there is shorter and shorter lifespan of these next attempts happening if only you can get back to that same river, so to speak. Now, like I said, it's all about sort of mastering the way you use your sensitivity, the way you are in tune with those energies that are being communicated through your body. And for millennia, we've been convinced by authorities, by the church, by everyone that our body is just a sack of bones and flesh, and it's sinful and it's bad and all that. But it's actually very tied to the energy world, with the subtle realm, with everything that is. That's why we usually feel really great and really aligned in nature. And it's hardly ever that I've never heard a sensitive person tell me that they feel bad in nature. It's usually the most calming, the most regulating, because it's part of us. We are part of it. And that's why resonance of earth is our resonance. That's why it's matching. But the extremism of people's behaviors towards the egotism, towards selfishness, towards scarcity, the extreme greed and narcissism, and the sort of primitive survival-based instincts that have been making their way and becoming more and more prominent in some people, this no longer works for us, and we cannot go by the same set of values anymore. That's why it feels so increasingly unbearable to exist in this world. And like I said in my previous videos, basically this path of burnout, of hitting the wall, of burning out in playing the roles wherever, in whichever area of your life, even if you're playing the role in front of yourself, trying to pretend someone that you're not, you might still burn out, even if there's no like an actual reasons that you can pinpoint for the burnout. It is asking for that space of the soul searching and learning to feel your way into what's more aligned, what feels better, what makes you feel more open, more happy, more natural, more effortless. And these ways are the only truth you need. The words are, it's not really secondary, right? It's just a layer that you can listen to, but you don't have to take it much into account, because eventually it's our feeling sense that tells us what's true for us. Okay, I think I've said what I needed to say, that burnout is basically a sort of shortcut, painful, yes, but a shortcut to redirect us to the path of alignment and learning to use our energy, learning to use our sensitivity for aligning and living the most harmonious, the most sustainable life for you, for me. And that's basically your job. That's my job as well. And this is what I've been practicing for the last years, ever since I started seeing this. And it gets better, and you get better. And over time, you start seeing the life that surrounds you that is much more sustainable, that's much more harmonious, that there is much less of people that are troublemakers, that cause you these sort of volatile states. There is maybe not anymore that job that drains you because maybe you've moved on and tried something completely different, something that feels maybe illogical, but feels like it's making you more happy, right? So this is what happens over time when you start listening to your energy, and nothing happens overnight. Just have some grace towards yourself, have some self-compassion on this journey, because it's a journey of learning, and really we are all just learning something that no one has taught us. But like I say in one of the chapters of my book, the body is the teacher. Your experience, your subjective sense is your teacher. You don't need anyone to tell you, and you don't want anyone to tell you how you should feel, what you should do, what's the right or wrong way. This is old news at this point, and the only truth is the one in your body, because it's tapped into everything, the sense of unity and source consciousness. Okay, I hope that was useful. I hope that has given you something to think about. If you've had burnout, maybe you can leave some thoughts, how you see it now after watching this video, listening to me speak. And I hope you'll be experimenting with listening to your energy, listening to your body more, because that's basically the path forwards. And this is basically how much we can save ourselves the pain of, doing the same old thing and expecting that something else would happen this time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you when I do. I don't make any promises.